begins on a cold, snowy evening in the quiet English village of Iping. The villagers are going about their routines when a mysterious stranger, bundled head to toe in bandages and heavy winter clothing, arrives at the Coach and Horses Inn. He wears dark glasses, gloves, and a wide-brimmed hat pulled low. Not a single inch of his skin is visible. He calls himself Griffin, pays up front, and demands a private room where he can work in peace. From the very beginning, Griffin's behavior is strange. He avoids small talk, keeps to himself, and spends most of his time in his room. Strange sounds come from within clinking glass, muttered curses, and even small explosions. He receives packages filled with scientific equipment and books. The villagers, curious and increasingly suspicious, begin to whisper about the odd newcomer. His surly attitude and secretive nature only fuel their gossip. Soon, mysterious occurrences begin to plague the inn and the surrounding town. Money goes missing, food vanishes, and tools are stolen. One night, the local vicar and his wife are awakened by the sound of their house being ransacked. But when they rush to investigate, no one is there. Doors slam, items float through the air, and yet no culprit can be seen. Fear begins to spread. When the innkeeper's patience runs out and she demands an explanation, Griffin shocks everyone by unwrapping his bandages and revealing that he is completely invisible. Panic erupts. The villagers attack, hoping to subdue him, but Griffin fends them off with brute strength and vanishes into the countryside. Now exposed, hunted, and without shelter, he wanders in desperation. His invisibility, once a scientific triumph, becomes a curse. Without clothes, he is vulnerable to the elements. Without visibility, he is cut off from society. His condition isolates him physically and psychologically. Freezing, exhausted, and increasingly paranoid, Griffin makes his way to the home of Dr. Kemp, a fellow scientist and former colleague from university. Kemp is shocked to find the Invisible Man in his home, but out of both curiosity and pity, he listens to Griffin's tale. Griffin explains how he had once been a promising medical student with a growing interest in physics, especially in the properties of light and refraction. Obsessed with unlocking the secrets of invisibility, he dedicated years to experimentation. After isolating himself from friends and family and stealing money from his own father, who later committed suicide, in disgrace, Griffin finally succeeded. He created a formula capable of bending light in such a way that it would pass through flesh and bone, rendering a body completely invisible. But the success was bittersweet. The transformation was irreversible. Griffin had not developed a method to restore his visibility. Excited by the power and potential of his discovery, he saw himself as a pioneer of a new age. Yet, reality quickly set in. He found it impossible to live undetected for long. Animals and people reacted violently to his unseen presence. He couldn't eat in public, couldn't stay warm, and couldn't interact without fear. He turned bitter, his mind unraveling under the weight of isolation. His resentment toward society grew. Rather than seek a cure, he embraced his invisibility as a tool for domination. With no one able to see or stop him, he envisioned himself as a kind of invisible overlord. Griffin began formulating what he called a reign of terror, a campaign of fear in which he would use violence and intimidation to bend the world to his will. He confides this plan to Kemp, who is increasingly disturbed by his guest's delusions of grandeur. Though Kemp listens calmly, he quietly alerts the authorities. He believes that Griffin is too dangerous to be allowed to roam free. When Griffin discovers the betrayal, his rage boils over. Declaring Kemp an enemy, he escapes the house and announces to the public that Dr. Kemp will be the first victim of his invisible crusade. Chaos descends on the town. Griffin begins a spree of violence and destruction. He derails trains, starts fires, and physically attacks citizens. The once quiet village is paralyzed with fear. People barricade their homes, carry weapons, and scan the streets for the slightest sign of movement. The authorities launch a manhunt. But how does one find a man who cannot be seen? Kemp takes precautions. He hires guards and remains indoors, but Griffin is relentless. He breaks into Kemp's home, injures several policemen, and leaves a chilling note. No one is safe. Kemp narrowly escapes an attack, thanks to the quick thinking of his staff. He flees through the town with Griffin in pursuit. But Kemp has allies. Word spreads quickly, and townspeople rally together. Watching for footprints in the snow and using nets and blunt objects, they track and corner Griffin in a narrow alley. Though invisible, he is not invincible. He is tackled, beaten, and subdued by the enraged crowd. As he lies dying, the strange effects of the invisibility formula begin to fade. Slowly, his body becomes visible again. The crowd watches in stunned silence as a pale, gaunt man appears before them, broken, bloody, and human. For the first time, they see the face of the man who caused such terror. Dr. Kemp, though shaken, gives a full account of Griffin's story to the authorities. He acknowledges that Griffin was once a brilliant mind, but had been consumed by arrogance and moral blindness. Kemp vows to ensure that Griffin's research is used ethically, not for power, but for progress. Themes and reflections. The Invisible Man is more than a science fiction thriller. It is a cautionary tale about the perils of unchecked ambition and the consequences of isolation. H.G.Wells explores what happens when a man is freed from societal restraints, morality, and consequence. Griffin's descent into madness is not caused by the invisibility itself, but by his rejection of empathy, ethics, and human connection. Griffin begins as a man of science, but ends as a monster of his own making. His transformation is not just physical, but spiritual. By removing himself from the visible world, he also severs ties to humanity. He sees people not as individuals, but as obstacles. His genius, once promising, is consumed by ego and resentment. Wells also critiques Victorian society's obsession with progress at any cost. The novel warns that scientific advancement without ethical responsibility can lead to destruction. Griffin's brilliance was not tempered by wisdom, and without accountability, it became a threat. Ultimately, The Invisible Man leaves readers with a haunting question. If you could act without consequence, who would you become?